breaks on wins, 7 wins, then to 6 wins, then to 5 wins. What is most important is when there is a tie, what do I do? When there is a tie on wins, let's say schools. Let's say Lowell SS has 5 wins, Ian SS has 5 wins, and Sabrina SS also has 5 wins. What then happens? Who do I break in and in what order? When in circumstances where the wins tie, we break according to your speaker marks. Okay, there is an opportunity for a swing team. I have 125 teams and I need to make an even number. So any 3 first hands will go and swing. You don't have to come from the same school. Any first 3 hands? Yes? What I know, the lady at the back put up her hand first, so please come. The lady in the blue jacket. Any other? Please, a swing team is not supposed to be on the school team. If your school entrusted you to represent them, don't now decide to go away and swing and say, for me, I want to be neutral. I love this country. Don't do it. A gentleman? Yes, sir. Please, come. Okay, come. So those are 3 people. Go and register with Shabil and Dorothy, and you'll be swinging. So as I was saying, each and every speaker contributes to the speaker tab. It means that on top of weighing you as a team, I still weigh you as an individual. And your individual mark has an impact to how the team is going to perform. To the extent that I have a draw somewhere in terms of wins, I am going to see which team has better speaker marks, and I will break them accordingly. Is that clear? So every speaker is encouraged to work hard so that they're not the reason the team does not break. If the speaks tie, tab gives me an opportunity to see standard deviation. So I will break according to standard deviation. But it's highly unlikely that those things tie. But when they do, those are the different options. That is how we shall be breaking. I hope everyone is very competent with that. Then these last 3 things I'm going to talk about are very important. 1, how do you lodge a complaint? 2, at what point do you contest a verdict? And lastly, how exactly do you contest a verdict? I know that we are highly competitive. I know that every one of us would like to take a trophy home. But the first thing I implore each and every person here to do is respect my adjudicators. My adjudicators didn't turn up so that you insult them and tell them how they don't know how to judge. Some patrons go a mile and even tell you, that judge is very stupid. There's no stupid judge. So I was explaining that the team of adjudicators that you're going to see is a team of well-trained ladies and gentlemen. Most of them have experience and expertise in this thing called adjudication. They have debated. We have all debated. We were once there. We know how to debate. We know how to judge. But in circumstances where you feel unsatisfied with the verdict or the result, this is how you to go about it. First of all, let me also make this clear. Just because you think something is correct doesn't make it correct. That for you know, this is it. Me, I am very sure. It doesn't mean that it is correct. even when you make the most arguments in the debate room, it doesn't mean they were relevant. You could just spend all your 6 minutes speaking off topic. But we are kind enough not to stop you, but somehow you're very unkind when you're asking for feedback. Is that clear? So, not everything you think you know is correct. That is why we have adjudicators. Others would ask you to judge your own selves. If you have a complaint or dissatisfaction with a ballot, you will approach the judge as respectfully as you can and question where you probably lost it. Perhaps start by telling them why you think your call should have been otherwise. Tell them this clash came from here and this clash came from here and this is what they said. Some people complain, but they also don't know where exactly they stand. So for you to know, for you to come and complain, you must also have established those various sectors. So come and approach the adjudicators, they're trained, they'll give you feedback in regards to what the debate was about and how it was run and why they decided a certain way. If you are not satisfied, ladies and gentlemen, we have team equity. We have Joshua Lowell Moes, please stand up. The gentleman over there. So you have seen Joshua Lowell Moezi and Kenyana Sarah Lusoke. She was here asking you to come in. Those two are going to handle your complaints. They're team equity. You're not satisfied, you think a judge was unfair, they were impartial, anything. Reach out to those two and they will be able to aid. If you like or are unsatisfied, you can still come to me and report that you feel unsatisfied. Afua from Bale SS, you are needed outside right now. So, that said, you are to go about that in that particular order, respectfully, all of us. Also, debaters, don't be rude to one another. Debates, nationals like these are an opportunity for you to make friends. And yeah, some of us never received mail in school, but maybe you can make friends that can send you mail. So that when others are receiving, you are not the one reading your books. So, that said, unless there are any questions, I want to invite the people that are going to do for us the model debate to get on the floor. Are there any questions before I invite them? Put up your hand.
What the young individual who is in Uganda, who is observing the world stage and the proceedings of the world, and what is the political ideology that swirls around the world that dictates what will happen tomorrow. To the extent that this individual is more likely liberal and is more likely looking towards a change in the political order, we think that they are likely to support the decision by the World Bank to sanction Uganda. So what was this decision? The World Bank made a decision that due to the laws of Uganda, they're going to deny them further loans. And we think that this was something that is good, because we think that the law that was made is not something that considers the rights of the individuals who are affected within that particular situation. To the extent that this young Ugandan cares about the rights of his friends, that he wants his friends to have a happy life because they are also Ugandan, despite a difference of belief. To the extent that he cares about them, he does not want that law to be in power. But yet you do not have the power to check your government. You do not have the power to control what laws are going to be put in place. To that extent, you need to depend on the one body or the one kind of entity that is stronger than the state, which are international powers. And this would amount to things such as the World Bank, which are the biggest providers of finance for a lot of developing states as around the world. We think economics is a huge consideration here. To the extent that a lot of developing countries still do development based on using aid or getting loans that are in their billions of dollars from these kinds of organizations, it then means that if the government of Uganda does not get this money, they are likely to actually listen to the complaints of this young Ugandan citizen. And even if this is not the case, we think they care about others. We do not want the government of Uganda to probably go and look for money in somewhere like China, because we don't think China is a good actor. China is likely to take your port, or they are likely to capture the infrastructure that is central to the country of Uganda. So we think that it is good that the government is sort of being coerced to take a particular action, because we don't think the action is a representation of all the people's will. And we think that this young Ugandan, who is at best what can be characterized as the average Ugandan, wants the World Bank to sanction his government so that his friend can live a happy life. Proud to propose.
Alright, so I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. I think two things we're going to prove from opposition. Why? One, the World Bank decision actually undermines countries' abilities to preserve their culture. Number two, why this decision undermines the World Bank's ability to sort of solve the problems that actually they intend to solve, and how it undermines their own principle at the end of the day. So I think proposition says that as an average Ugandan, you care about the rights of others. You care about the situation of others. We think that is true, but to the extent that you're not feeding everyone that is on the street, doesn't necessarily mean that we care about every other person that exists. We think the closest person to you is the person you care about most. And we think as an average Ugandan, most of us are conservative. We think essentially it means we should care about the people that are most approximate to us. That is essentially why we think the World Bank decision is a poor one. We think secondly, there are two types of Uganda. The very conservative one that essentially think that Uganda's decision to enact the law is a good thing, and there are others that essentially think that the World Bank decision is a bad decision because they support the LGBTQ and all these people. We think essentially them not supporting this right ultimately is in favor of them as well, because when you do support the World Bank decision, essentially it means that Uganda should change its laws, or the World Bank should actually stop giving aid because of this law. So essentially you're saying that Uganda should actually approve or maybe like reenact a law that says we should maybe permit the existence of such people within society. That is why we think it actually removes countries' ability to protect their own cultures. Because when you condition aid on countries to actually make laws that the World Bank said, we think essentially it means that countries cannot decide laws that actually actively favor them as a country, because morals are subjective. That means the way of life for Americans are not the way of life Africans live, or the way of life for China is not the way of life we live. So we make laws according to our situation. Should.
Do you think it's possible for a country to make bad laws?
Yes, it is possible, and we are educated people, we are in a globalized world, so we know what is right from wrong. That means there are models that are standard, that essentially things like murder, things like rape, is essentially things we all agree upon. That is why we are not allowing all immigrants from every country to enter our own borders, because we have specific laws that only favor us as a country. That is why essentially we should have the ability to decide what works for us and what not working for us. That is essentially why the gay bill is good and the World Bank decision is a bad one, because it imposes that restriction on countries to essentially do that. We think secondly, we think that the existence of the World Bank is to solve things like poverty, solve things like alleviation. We think this decision undermines the ability to do that on things that doesn't necessarily affect those things, because it means World Bank stops giving money to Uganda. That means hospitals are not going to be equipped with drugs, roads are not going to be reconstructed. It means essentially more suffering will exist in Uganda because of the imposition of this restriction that is caused by the World Bank, which undermines the World Bank's ability, which is principally inconsistent, proud or bold.
So, Chair, I'll engage on basically two actors. First, the World Bank, and second, the Ugandan citizen. Kimani tells you about the Ugandan citizen and how liberal they are and how they spend most of their time like observing the globalization of the world, and why this essentially plays into the fact that they're actually liberal people who would want to protect the rights of others, but most importantly, who would not want to like be caged by their own government. Notice, Chair, that the Ugandan government in and of itself is one that is a bit controlling and aggressive. So it means that an ordinary citizen of Uganda would need to get redress, but they cannot get redress from within these structures because of how rigid they are. That means that any sensible Ugandan in that context would want to perceive and support the idea of the World Bank. And I'll tell you why that is likely to work. It's likely to work because A, World Bank mostly funds Uganda, and it is important. We think that World Bank has a leverage on Uganda, and as such, if World Bank withdraws its funding on grounds of that kind of thing, it means that Uganda is more likely to pull towards playing within the actions of the World Bank, which we think provides like redress within the context of a liberal citizen of Uganda. But secondly, also speaking as the second actor as the World Bank, we think that the World Bank supporting or giving you funding necessarily means that they give you legitimacy to your actions. We think that even the World Bank as a principal actor has an obligation to protect whatever they want to protect. That includes their beliefs and their obligations. To the extent that anything harms their beliefs or obligations, we think they are justified to take any action to stop that. We think to that extent then, if the World Bank thinks that they run liberal ideals and Uganda does not conform to such ideals, we think the World Bank is justified to withdraw its support. Basically, primarily because we think that they should not give legitimacy to whoever they don't want to give legitimacy to. I'll take you, Vincent.
In a country where 40% of women die during childbirth, is it legitimate for World Bank to continue to allow?
Yes, it is legitimate for World Bank to continue giving support. If you don't want the 40 women to die, then obey the damn rules of liberalism and you will get the funding. We think that is the only incentive we have to check the rigid and ancient government of Uganda that wants to capitalize people under bad laws or under laws that are not observing the global trend. We think to that extent, if I am able to prove that the World Bank is justified in its action, but also why a Ugandan citizen would want that, because they can't get redress within, they can never, and so they can seek it in all ways. We shall support the decision of the World Bank. What's what I'm proud to propose.
Am I audible? Okay, so Chair, what you'll realize from Kimani's speech and Maria's speech is that they both sound like people who are from the West, people who are Europeans and believe within the ideals of morality which are confined within Europe. What you need to understand is very important. Europeans are the people who decided the context at which Africans must exist. For years, hundreds of years, they came into our land, they justified colonization and took our people there. They justified things such as slavery. Where was the World Bank? We think it is particularly problematic that at the point in time in which Africans stand firm and say that this is indeed our cultural identity, that they come in and shun us. The illusion they have from government side is that the Western people are always going to be right for some certain idea. But we think at the point in time in which the West and the World Bank in and of itself decide what it means to be an African, what it means to believe in certain ideals, and especially at the point in time at which it affects the lives of multiples of citizens in the country of Uganda, we think it is particularly problematic. You need to understand a couple of things we seek to just protect within our side. One, we seek to protect the religious sovereignty of the people of Uganda. What you need to understand within today's debate is that they lie to you a lot. We don't think the question of liberalism is one within the aspect of this debate. We think majority of the Ugandans and everyone here, even the people who speak before me, are people who are informed by Christian values. What are their names? Maria Speria, a Christian and appealing towards it. The second one, Joshua Lawel. Joshua is a Christian name. What this must prove to you is that majority of the people who are congregated here are people whose cultural identities and your own identity is formed by religion. If your religion tells you not to do a certain thing, we don't think they are justified to punish us for what our religion tells us to do, what our culture tells us to do. They cannot do that to us. They are bad people. They cannot win today's debate. But understand the second thing, because it's very important in terms of our POI and it comes from our side. We tell them that there are many people who suffer within Uganda out of things such as childbirth and all these sorts of things. All these things are moral questions which the World Bank has necessarily turned a blind, just not listen to all these sorts of things. We don't think it's justified for the World Bank to now come in and say that, oh look, women are dying out of pregnancy, but what we are going to focus on is you need to let men marry other men. We think that is particularly problematic at the point in time in which people are actively dying, but their biggest priority is men marrying men. They cannot win this debate. They are definitely out. Vote for the opposition. Here, here.
Panel, I'll start in 3, 2, 1. So, panel, we think the core problem in this is change the system from within. They don't have capacity to sort of have a voice, right? It is highly possible that I am homophobic. That is to say, I don't like sleeping with a fellow man. It is not essentially true that I'm also okay with killing someone who does it. Perhaps I think that we should pray for them and they become better. The problem with the anti-homosexuality law is that it does not only condemn gay rights, it also punishes them in ways that we are not sure every Ugandan cares about. We give you a clear analysis of how Ugandan population has shifted. Notice how like, all these young people here have smartphones, which was impossible like 5 years ago. Notice how these individuals have access to things like Twitter, to things like TikTok, which influence. We don't love the World Bank so much, but we think if they're willing to sort of help hold our government to account, to be able to listen to us, that is something we are willing to do. The idea that they have been bad in before does not matter. I don't think that if you abused me yesterday, but today you want to give me food to eat because I'm hungry, I'm going to refuse to take it because you did bad like before, right? The extent I need you presently, we think people should be able to justify that. We think that is essentially true. Yes, yes.
Okay, someone is starving, but the only way to save them is that if they put on a white shirt, that's the only condition you're going to
So exactly, it's the idea of necessity. We tell you that currently, you have a lot of people who sympathize with homosexuality, right? Notice how this law is very deplorable. It tells you you're not supposed to even discuss it because you're promoting it means you're going to be sent to jail. The idea that these Ugandans can't change even like the ruthless articles that exist in that law means that they can only get have to seek redress from without. And we tell you that the idea of urgency means that we must get an actor who the government is willing to respond to. The analysis you don't get from them is the extent to which governments like Uganda depend on foreign entities like the World Bank, which funds like 20% of Uganda's development projects. Because of the urgency and the fact that World Bank can act, because we have the incentive to sort of exist, we think they are going to act on our behalf. They need to tell us how citizens who believe that the anti-homosexuality care bill is unfair, especially in terms of punishment, how they are going to change the system from within or where else they can get redress. We think if an enemy is giving you water when you're starving, we think you should take that water. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1, go. So Chair, understand that as opposition party, we don't deny the fact that liberalization is actually taking some form in Uganda, but understand that the pace of liberalization is one that is basically very slow. Our second speaker comes and tells you that if you look at the predominant Ugandan society, they are basically conservative. That means they are deeply rooted in their culture and religion at the end of the day. That necessarily shows that however much they are trying to paint a picture of liberalization actually happening in Uganda, it is happening at a very slow pace. And the current society does not reflect the idea that Ugandans are basically progressives at the end of the day. Secondly, on the idea of rights, Pano understand that the concept of rights is basically an aggregate of what society actually believes in. At a point in time where the entire Ugandan society believes that their morals and culture are actually more important than the kind of freedoms that you want to actually advance to this kind of people, this is actually very important. That means they cannot come and argue on the idea of rights. Pano, that, when they come and talk about the idea of economics, Pano, we think that what these Western countries have actually done is that they have used this kind of loans and donations as a tool of turning third worlds into Western puppets at the end of the day. We think this is one principally very wrong. But even if they argue in that way, we think that even if these countries actually shift to the idea of of finding alternatives to this kind of aid, for example, BRICS, we think this is justifiable because BRICS does not dictate for us our social policies. But then secondly, even if we take them to their best, we think that even if World Bank withdraws, it necessarily incentivizes government to actually improve on its policies that enhance physical efficiency. The benefits with this is that Uganda becomes economically sustainable at the end of the day. I'll take it, money.
Okay, even if I'm conservative, does that mean I want gay people killed?
So, exactly what I'm telling you tonight's debate is, for you to actually determine what the society wants, you need to get an aggregate of the opinion. This has already been very much evidenced by the fact that the anti-homosexuality bill necessarily gained popularity from the entire mass of Ugandans at the end of the day. So, Pano, what do we tell you in terms of weighing? One, we think that this policy is not principally justifiable because it defies the idea of self-determination. Pano, understand that as Ugandans, we have the right to determine our economic and social policies at the end of the day. At a point in time where this kind of policy is actually, where this kind of position actually forces us to take a position which we don't like, we think this is principally unjustifiable. But then, Pano, understand that the major objectives of World Bank is actually to provide development aid at the end of the day. That means they have to make sure that there's proper health services and stuff like that. At a point in time where the kind of policy that they're actually trying to advance necessarily stops the aid from flowing, that means people are dying in the hospitals at the end of the day. We think this is principally inconsistent even from the point of view of the World Bank. But then, Pano, understand that on the magnitude of harm, you get more harm from their side because first, understand that if you actually stop this aid, that means even the gay people who are supposed to be receiving the aid that comes through this, receiving services that come through this aid are not going to be able to access these services. That means everyone loses. But then I'm trying to understand that secondly, there's also polarization of culture. Vote opposition.
Alright, I'll be starting with speech in 3, 2, 1. The reason why proposition losing this debate for two things. One, on protection of culture. We told them that for Uganda to protect its culture, because our morals differ from Western morals, we think essentially we need to be able to determine our own laws. We think World Bank undermines that when they condition access to funds on such values. We think that is inherently harmful to a country like Uganda, which I think most African countries would relate with. That essentially we show you that why this decision is a bad thing. I think secondly, they told us that because people are suffering in Uganda, like gay people are suffering in Uganda, we think they do not show that since the vast majority of people within Uganda don't essentially agree with World Bank, that essentially means no one essentially actually suffering. I think on the second, which I think we win on a landslide, is that more people will suffer with this decision from the World Bank because Uganda loses the ability to access funds which serve to protect women dying in hospitals, people suffering because of poverty. All these things are not solved. Even the gay people that are trying to protect suffer the same way. So proud to oppose.
Let's start now. So the first clash we think is on the kind of identity held by Ugandans. They say they're conservative, they point out as to why they have Christian names. We really don't think this is sufficient in comparison to the analysis we give you about the number of Ugandans who we think are younger and the kind of ideas they have. We think that is more likely the true characterization as opposed to their claims of conservativeness. We can buy that they are probably in touch with their traditions, but we think that is more likely people who are older generations which had time to, not so much time to interact with the world. The generation that interacts with the world is more likely to have different values. Second thing, they want to talk about how you can influence the government. But as things are of now, you can barely get that government to change a law if it matters to you. So even on your side, if you really wanted something, the government will not be able to react to you. Only on our side do you provide influence against your government. Because we think every citizen should have some ability to control the person who controls their lives. And that happens only on our side. We can change the government, they can't.
in the proposition versing Elizabeth A. In room 10, we have Nyabuina A. In the proposition versing Chibuli S. In the opposition. In room 11, we have St. Andrea Kawa. In the proposition that is St. Andrea Team B. We have